udvikleren på Diablo 3, Jay Wilson.
So Diablo 3 takes place 20 years after the events of Lord of Destruction. After the World Stone was destroyed at the end of Lord of Destruction, the kind of general thought by both the community and by the heroes of Diablo 2 was that there was going to be an invasion. That essentially there would be nothing protecting Sanctuary anymore, and hell would invade. And it never happened. And 20 years passed, and it was actually quite peaceful, and not much really occurred, and people became complacent and they forgot. A lot didn't believe that the events of Diablo 2 even occurred. There were very few people who actually had direct exposure to demons who didn't go mad or get eaten. But Deckard Cain still believes. He believes that an invasion is coming. He believes that there's still a greater danger out there. So he spent the last 20 years trying to discover what that danger is. And the events that start Diablo 3 are essentially a meteor kind of falls from the sky and is considered to be this big harbinger of doom or salvation. We don't really know. But Deckard definitely thinks it's the sign of the end times. One of the notions that we have with the story for Diablo 3, one of the ideas that we liked was there was a lot of elements within the story of Diablo 2 of destroying evil forever and vanquishing all evil, and I don't really look at the Diablo universe in that way. Like you really are never going to destroy evil. You're going to fight the good fight. Yeah. And as soon as you think you've won is actually the time that it's most dangerous. So that was the idea we wanted to explore in Diablo 3 was once you've reached the point where Baal and Mephisto and Diablo have all been destroyed, vanquished, who knows? That's actually the point where you're most likely to become overconfident and play into the hands of evil. One of the things that was really important to us in developing Diablo 3 was story. We wanted to tell a great story. We wanted to have this really compelling world. And so we started telling a big, great, grand story. And what we found was that anything that got in the way of the players clicking like mad and killing the next thing on the screen, they just ignored. Even if they loved story, they got very fixated on the next kill, the next item, the next upgrade. And so we really needed to kind of adapt and change a lot of our storytelling mechanics. We had to move away from in-game cutscenes. We had to move away from lengthy dialogue. There's a lot of monologues in Diablo 2, and what we found is that people didn't listen to them. They just kind of walked up, clicked on the dude, saw their quest ding, and walked away in mid-sentence. And so we focused a lot on no monologues, always having an engaging conversation. Conversation between two people generally can convey information quicker, and it's also more interesting. It's more interesting to see people interact. We have a lot of storytelling mechanisms that just occur while you're playing the game. There are lore books, which will kind of audio that just plays automatically as you go through. There's a lot of characters within the world that are actually in the game world, and scenarios that you'll run into that are interesting gameplay scenarios, but also tell story. And we've also added a lot of followers and quest escorts who are partially there to help you, but also there to convey to you what's going on and tell you about the world around you. We have several different systems at play. We've got waypoints are still used as a fast travel system, very similar to how they're used in Diablo 2. But what we found was that the just kind of size of our world that we created, it's not necessarily bigger than Diablo 2, but it is structured a little different. And without getting into the uber details of why, it caused us to make a lot of waypoints, which we didn't want to do, because it became really difficult to manage them and remember which ones were which. We also changed a lot of aspects about how the player dies and how the player deals with death. So we created a kind of an in-between step between waypoints that we call checkpoints. Checkpoints are essentially a place where we save your status in the game. So if you leave the game and come back to it, you can come back to your last checkpoint. It's also how it can be used as essentially a step point for death. So when you're really far away from a waypoint, We didn't want you to have to spend as much time running, so we use checkpoints for that as well. But the player doesn't necessarily interact with checkpoints. It's not an object within the game world. It's kind of it's a game convention, essentially. And then we also recently added a way to get back to town that's very similar, but not quite the same as town portals, to essentially remove some of the combat exploit of town portals, but keep all the convenience. If you look at Diablo 2, like, you went to level 99, but the highest level non-boss monster in the game is level 85. So essentially you out-level the content. Skill points become meaningless, items become meaningless, the levels become meaningless because you don't need any. And there's nothing to do at the end game because you're overpowered from all of it. So one of the things that I think when players look at a lot of things like levels, they'll say more is always better. But the truth is that there's only so much power we can meaningfully give you before it starts feeling trivialized. If every level is a percentage of your overall power, the more you have, the less power we give you each level. So we wanted what we gave you to be more meaningful from level to level. And we wanted you to reach the end game and not be out-leveled from it. At the end of the game, you're level 60. The average monster in the game at the highest difficulty is level 61. So you never out-level the content. And there's still, as a result, there's a lot more meaningful action to do at the end of Diablo 3 than there was in Diablo 2. Once you finish normal, you go directly into Nightmare. Nightmare takes you to level 50. And we're still tuning the level curve right now. You hit about level 35 through a single playthrough. 30, it depends on how thorough you are. I'm pretty thorough, so I hit about level 35. If you're less, it's a little lower. And then you tend to have to just do runs or things like that, very similar to Diablo 2 to get up. And we haven't decided whether we like that or we just want you to go ahead and hit level 50 and not have to do... It's a bit of a weird point to hit where you finish Nightmare, but you can't go to hell. So we're trying to decide, do we want to shorten the overall time to 60 and just let you play through in a single playthroughs? Or do we want to put something in as a stopgap between those and lengthen the time? We haven't decided that yet. And then the last 10 levels are hell. The nice thing is we've got Diablo 2 to look at, so we can see kind of the builds that were broken and why, and inform our class design. The other thing we have, Diablo 2, they did Lord of Destruction in about a year, and then they stopped working on Diablo 2. Like, they did patches, but the dev team as a whole kind of moved on. So one of the things that we're hoping is that we spend a lot more time on Diablo 3 after release, so that we can continue to support. One of the things that we like to say is that Blizzard games are so well balanced because we don't stop balancing them once we release. The release date isn't finished for us. The release date's almost where we start. It's like, okay, well, here's Diablo 3. To really get it right, we've got to put it in front of the community and get their feedback and let them discover some things that maybe we didn't see. And then as we continue to do expansions and updates, we can change some things, which nobody likes to see things change, but they usually understand it's for the best. And it's easier to kind of accept those changes when we're adding more content to the game. The way Magic Find was designed, the way itemization was done, until the Hammerden, if you weren't playing a sorcerer, then you were really not playing right. Like as your primary farming character, because and so, but a lot of the things that a lot of the problems with how Magic Find worked, primarily in how the range classes were itemized and how they basically didn't care about their items nearly as much as some of the others. But those are all things that we've looked to fix. So basically, the way the auction house works is it allows players to trade with in-game currency or with real money. So we don't know exactly what currencies we're going to support by release, but a lot of major currencies will be supported, and you'll be able to kind of choose within your region which currency you want to operate and trade with them. You'll be able to trade items between players and purchase in either real gold or real money, or in-game gold or real money. Blizzard's not going to sell items on it. It is purely to facilitate player trading. Some of the concerns that we really had voiced about is that won't people be able to trade and buy their way to the top? And our response is, well, yeah, just like Diablo 2 and Diablo. Like, people bought items in Diablo 2, and not a small amount. They bought a lot. They traded items in Diablo 2. That's the core of the game. A lot of the times I think when people are concerned about that, ability to purchase power, they're thinking of a more prestige item system like World of Warcraft, where the idea of getting the best item in the game really involves playing at kind of the in-game content with a raid group in very, very difficult content. And certainly that is the case in Diablo 3. The best items are going to come from the in-game content. And since it's just a trading system, every one of those items is going to have to have been acquired by a player. So it's not just a factor of, we're going to sell a really powerful item to people. It's that players are going to acquire them and trade with one another. But we've always allowed players to freely trade with one another. And that's always been a core of the game. Well, what's interesting is, playing hardcore has always been an online experience. Primarily, playing a single-player offline hardcore character kind of defeats the point of being able to show off what you've done to other people and what you've been able to create. And it's not easy. It's not hard to get in Diablo 2 to get trainers and hacks to be able. You can make a hardcore single-player character like that. Yeah. So there's not really true prestige in it. So it's always been an online experience. We have a lot of experience with online play from Battle.net premiered on Diablo 15 years ago. So, and since then we've had Diablo 2, we've had World of Warcraft, we've had all the online experience with StarCraft 2. Certainly a game where connectivity is really critical when you're talking about competitive play. World of Warcraft connectivity is incredibly important when you're talking about a subscription-based service. So we have a lot of experience in creating a secure and strong online online system. And that's what we'll continue to provide for Diablo 3. Right. We don't have a release date we haven't officially announced a release date. We're not officially saying it's going to be 2011. We are hopeful it will be 2011. So that's kind of where we're at with that.